for that wonderful introduction. I'm very proud of that young man. I get a chance to see him often at the office, and I've been noticing his work for over a year now, and I'm just so very proud of his progress. And you have no way of knowing how excited I am that he's a law school student at Marquette. They actually had lunch in your law school's cafeteria last Friday. That's the first time I'd ever been in the building. So I can see why you walk around with a little edge to you. I mean, it's a plush place. They're spoiling you all over there. Nice. Okay? But, most importantly, I want to say thank you to Cheryl Blue, for this opportunity to speak today. Cheryl is a unique person and a special individual to me. I often tell Cheryl that she's one of the greatest wonders here in this city. I'm actually trying to push her for a political office at some point in time, because I truly think that there's something so wonderful and unique about her that she's going to have to share it in a much more profound way here in this particular city. And I know there are some people that are sitting out in the audience that would agree with me, but probably don't want her to step down from her executive director position with the Corp just yet, but there are greater things for Cheryl. Now, I'm going to begin, and let me start off by saying that whatever I say here today, the Corp cannot be held accountable for that, okay? It is 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm an entrepreneur. I write my name on the front of the check. I don't behold to anybody. So the Corp and Cheryl and Dee and nobody should be held accountable for what's getting ready to come out of my mouth, okay? So I just wanted to make that clear. My worldview regarding entrepreneurship is basically grounded in several fundamental core beliefs, which includes but are not limited to the following. First, the formula for wealth in the United States is Q plus MA equals C, meaning the quality of service plus the quantity of service plus the mental attitude with which it is rendered always equals compensation. Always equals compensation. Wealth is created by taking ideas derived from technology and using the two to develop a service or a product that people are willing to pay for. Number 3, entrepreneurship is both a new way of thinking about the world and an old way of thinking about the world. Number 4, in order for African Americans to realize the American dream, we have to recast Freedom Summer of 1964. This time when we knock on the doors in our community to ignite a movement, we encourage entrepreneurship in the manner in which we push and encourage people to vote. When we train the trainers, we equip them with the requisite skills and know how to go into hostile environments, spreading the good news of a different form and a brand of liberation strategy for all African Americans. Number 5, and this might be a little spiritual for some of you, but before I go up yonder, I got to live down here. Pie in the sky and by is not what God is really all about. The God who I serve can give you some pie right down here. He can help you survive your sojourn on this side of the grave. This can be underscored in his word and in his world. If anybody asks you, should the church be concerned about economic development, tell that somebody, you better believe it. And if that person should wonder why, you can say that the church must be concerned because God was concerned, and God still is. Corp leadership and other city of Milwaukee leaders, the state of black business in Milwaukee, Wisconsin is on a trajectory to increase wealth, jobs, and scale in spite of current data. Let me share some of that data with you. Black-owned business development in Milwaukee is viewed as being very fragile. Nurturing a critical mass of black-owned businesses in the region remains very much a work in progress. 90% of black-owned businesses have no employees. Black-owned businesses in Milwaukee remain overwhelmingly mom and pop operations. Black businesses have a scant presence in such high-value added sectors like manufacturing, construction, finance, professional, scientific, and technical services. These are sectors with high capital requirements, high barriers to entry, and established supplier and consumer networks that inhibit the development of minority-owned enterprises. Also, Black-owned businesses are a disproportionate share when compared to all firms. In other words, other services. The other services category comprises of establishments in such areas as promoting or administering religious activities, providing dry cleaning and laundry services, personal care services, pet care services, and temporary parking services. Black-owned businesses in Milwaukee have a long way to go before its sectoral composition resembles the structure of the overall economy. Only Pittsburgh and Buffalo, New York have lower Black participation rates than Milwaukee did in 2007. Caused behind the lag in Milwaukee's Black business development are racial discrimination, unequal access to capital, entrepreneurial deficits, hypersegregation. Black-owned businesses ownership in Milwaukee remains highly concentrated in the central city. 88.2% of all Black-owned firms in Metro Milwaukee in 2007 were located in the central city. The suburbanization gap between Black-owned firms versus all firms is wider in Milwaukee than anywhere else in America. Wisconsin ranks dead last in the Kaufman Foundation's largest state rankings for startup activity. The negative data only feeds into a never-ending chorus of naysayers that see Black businesses' success through shattered lenses. So what do these naysayers believe? Well, a third to prison, a third to war, and a third maybe to college. Black Milwaukeeans have mostly been left behind by progress since Dr. King's death. It's almost difficult to find sometimes the bright spots. Milwaukee is bad for Black people because of failing public education system, incarceration, and segregation. Black-owned businesses in Milwaukee and Wisconsin lack access to capital, information, and opportunities. Black businesses' services are perceived to be inferior compared to whites. Black-owned businesses are slow to react when compared to their white counterparts. The good news is as long as entrepreneurship is about people, we have a fighting chance despite what our current realities tell us. There are several Black Milwaukeeans, so-called what I call free people, who keep marching forward in spite of this negative data because they simply have no choice. So who am I talking about? I'm talking about individuals like Valerie and John Daniels, who are owners of D&J Holding Company. I'm talking about Q and Khalif El-Amin, owners of Young Entrepreneurs Society. I'm talking about Joanne Sabir, the entrepreneur behind the Sherman Phoenix development. I'm talking about Carla Krause, owner of Krause Management Services. I'm talking about Kaylin Haywood, owner of the Haywood Group. I'm talking about Mike Thompson, the owner of Fair Oaks Farms, LLC, located in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin. I'm talking about Corey Nettles, owner of Generation Growth Capital. I'm talking about Adonica Randall, owner of Abaxon, LLC. I'm talking about Ugu Wabaroshin, and it took me a long time to learn how to pronounce that. Owner of Diamond Disc International. Kevin Newell, owner of Royal Capital Group, the largest Black-owned real estate development firm in the state. I'm talking about James, Jalen, and Clifton Phelps of JPC Construction Company. And I'm also talking about Eunice Payne, the owner of Edison Clifton. Our challenge here today is to grow this number of successful African-American entrepreneurs here in Milwaukee. However, the only way to successfully do that is to have a plan. Let me boldly say that there will be no knights in shining armor riding into Milwaukee to do this work for us. We have to do this for ourselves. I would like to offer up an agenda for consideration as the plan is being developed by many people who are actually in this room today. So what is this agenda? The first thing that I recommend is that we do the work of free people. For most Americans, the so-called greatest generation was the men and women who fought and served during World War II. However, for African Americans, our greatest generation was not the civil rights generation, but the free people who built communities and enterprises during the period called Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, and several years after the death of Booker T. Washington in 1915. The free people understood that in order to breathe new life into their newfound freedom, they had to create an economic system. They articulated a new discourse in terms of what it meant to be free and be an American that was both sophisticated and scary because it projected hope and economic militancy. The free people understood that the key to Black Lives Matter is education. These free people started over 140 colleges and universities. At least 37 are now defunct or no longer in business. The free people developed and activated bonds between them because they understood that they were the only ones who would create this desired future. So what are some examples of acting and behaving like free-thinking people? I want to draw your attention to Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. America's greatest example of Black entrepreneurship was perhaps best played out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Better known as the Greenwood Business District, it was named after the Mississippi Delta city of Greenwood, where Blacks developed over 36 square blocks of enterprises before it was burned to the ground by whites who hated Blacks because they had become too successful, meaning amassing wealth comparable to whites in Beverly Hills today. The Greenwood Business District was Black America's Wall Street. Durham, North Carolina's Haiti Business District. Another example of early entrepreneurial success before the turn of the 20th century is Durham, North Carolina's economic enclave, better known as the Haiti neighborhood. Durham is mostly famous for the creation of the Coleman Manufacturing Company, Mechanics and Farmers Bank, and the North Carolina Mutual Insurance Company. When entrepreneurial scholars talk about Durham, they like to compare success against Harlem, New York, which is known for Black writers, artists, sculptors, and musicians. According to one such scholar, while Blacks in Harlem were writing poems and daydreaming about being Black, Blacks in Durham were calculating, working, and doing business deals. Blacks in Harlem wanted to be known as the cultural capital of Black America, while Blacks in Durham wanted to be the Mecca of Black enterprises. Blacks in Durham, North Carolina were committed to becoming a place where fortunes could be made. Blacks in Durham, North Carolina were about the business of enterprise, known for their willingness to sacrifice. They were highly skilled across several occupational classifications, but most important, they were strategic, economically resilient, and understood their leadership role within the community. Mount Bayou, Mississippi, where I was born. Today, virtually a ghost town and an unfortunate illustration of rural deprivation, Mount Bayou, Mississippi in the late 19th and early 20th centuries was to be the dream of Black economic independence and capitalist utopia. During Mount Bayou's heyday, the town had a thriving railroad depot station, 800 families that owned 30,000 acres of land, 13 small shops doing $600,000 worth of business annually in 1907, a thriving sawmill, 3 cotton gins, a telephone exchange, a weekly newspaper, 6 churches, and 2 private schools. The centerpiece of all this activity was the Bank of Mount Bayou. Before the term cha-ching was uttered by our generation, the bank's most famous president, Charles Banks, believed that the music of the bank's cash register was as pleasing as a rhapsody of a Beethoven sonata. Rethinking Black power. And when I say rethinking Black power, I mean we got to create the same machine that they created as it related to the Tuskegee machine. Let me go on record by saying that Booker T. Washington was right. I didn't say W.E.B. Du Bois was right. I said Booker T. Washington was right. Therefore, we must act on that reality. We have to be responsible and in control of Milwaukee moving forward, meaning we have to have a hand in the money deals and their flows within Southeast Wisconsin entrepreneurial ecosystem and not be an afterthought when the deals have been done, like Foxconn, like the Bucks Arena, like Northwest Mutual Tower, like the streetcar named Desire, like Century City, like the Democratic National Convention, and many more. I'm interested in the machine not being an appendage, but a large chapter in the narrative on Milwaukee yet to be written. We have to be out front in terms of what is said about our community, who does research on our community, who does deals on behalf of our community, who speaks on behalf of our community, who markets our community. Another thing that's a part of this agenda, I call it the rise of the entrepreneurial community infrastructure. As an intelligent community, we must reorder priorities and strategies to work across the community to alleviate poverty. The machine has to be out front promoting entrepreneurship in low-income neighborhoods as a recognized regional life skill. Washington's Tuskegee machine was the tip of the spear for the free people movement. Our collective goal should be to put pressure on poverty, to call 911 because it is a community-accepted value that teach people entrepreneurship and how to make money. You can't build wealth in the community when there are more thriving so-called social services and nonprofits than actual thriving black business enterprises.
That's right.
Now, I'm not suggesting get rid of Milwaukee's dependence on that sector, but there's a way to restructure relationships that will allow them to be a part of the machine's intentional puppeteering of the creation of legitimate patterns of new ideas and information exchanges. As a part of this reordering of priorities and strategies, we have to demand public service innovation from the individuals who hold elected and appointed positions in the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County, as well as in Madison, as well as in Washington, D.C. If you are interested in public service, you need to be willing to develop real and legitimate economic development portfolio that the community can measure in terms of wealth, jobs, and facelift development that signals community revival. Willingness to attract investments not just downtown, but in underinvested neighborhoods, real dollars. Willing to be a part of a new informal government regime that will accelerate and transform how we do business in Milwaukee and how we live together through a shared prosperity model. Not be afraid to be out front where everybody can hear you say black wealth is just as important as white wealth and any other wealth if you're going to have that glorious city on the hill. Equally promote Garden Homes, Sherman Park, Granville, North Avenue in the same manner that the 3rd Ward, downtown, and Brewers Hill is promoted to outside investors and visitors. Take the lead in making Milwaukee a sustainable entrepreneurial city where the tagline reads people, planet, and profit. Promoting Milwaukee as the nation's hot spot for black enterprises, innovation, and especially manufacturing. Public servants who want to be viewed as more than just a member of a governing team, but the team choreographer who oversees the interplay between developers, entrepreneurs, the so-called creative class, venture capitalists, architects, and corporate leaders who decide who gets what, when, and how. Individuals who are not afraid to stop the overzealous desire to always look outside of Milwaukee for ideas to grow wealth and jobs in urban areas. I'm calling up and out people who will canvass this room this evening for ideas that can transform our great city. In other words, you don't have to go somewhere looking for talent and smart people. They're right here in Milwaukee. Individuals who will be aggressive in directing government departments and agencies to get busy on solving the black wealth problem and develop effective policies and visible accountability. And if you just got to look outside for help, then travel beyond Detroit and Cleveland and maybe visit Austin, Texas. Why? Because it's the #1 entrepreneurial ecosystem in America. If you want to see real wealth made, go where it's being done. The next thing, we got to be able to follow the money. An official within a major technical support organization in Wisconsin told me at the Milwaukee Metropolitan Association of Commerce luncheon 3 years ago that the only economic interest the state has and will have is through 3 clusters that are driving the economy in southeast Wisconsin. So what are these 3 clusters? Energy, power, and control. Water, food and beverage. We can follow the money all we want, but we better have a winning strategy. That's why today I'm talking directly from what I call my IC Square Global Fellows Playbook to share with you the social physics strategy. So what is social physics in terms of its definition and meaning? It means disciplined networks. It means the orchestration and creation of entrepreneurial values. It means exploiting opportunities through information that is open to everyone. It means the deployment of knowledge that creates economic prosperity and grows value. It means the art of generating new knowledge. And it means the art of intentional collective action. But the centerpiece of the social physics strategy is understanding the power of networks. In order to understand this power, you have to be willing to do the following things. 1, create a culture within the black community that understands the importance of studying networks. Create a big regional lens that looks at southeast Wisconsin comprehensively, looks at the enterprises within the region, Look at the money deals. Look at the money deals of large corporations. Look at the region's young growth companies, and the individuals who lead them and who their investors are, and seriously track the flow of information. Measure the strength of network connections and understand that what gets measured matters. Let me put it another way. What gets measured gets resource. In other words, it gets money. Map the social networks in the region. Map everything in the region. Map the relationships. Map the connections. Map the opportunities. Where the financial and technical resources are and where the creative spaces are located. Pay attention to the social management of creativity and innovation. Develop a regional applied entrepreneurship research platform. Tell the stories about Black business challenges, success, and opportunities. Conduct economic impact studies. Develop case studies about successful Black businesses. Research Black business barriers to growth and sustainability. Mine the data to determine how to make Black businesses successful. Next, adopt successful equations. If we're going to follow the money, then we need to understand the formulas that made both Silicon Valley and Austin, Texas successful. By the way, these are two of the most successful wealth creation ecosystems in the world. So for Silicon Valley, the success formula is new products, plus companies, plus new industries, plus new investments equals wealth and jobs. For Austin, Texas, the success formula is just a tad bit more complicated. It is science, plus technology, plus collective behavior that follows mathematical patterns with surprising precision, plus wealth, plus jobs equals a better future. Now, how do we get there? One, we got to invest in STEM education to create STEM businesses. In 2007, when I was still employed at Marquette, I led a regional effort in partnership with the Milwaukee Area Workforce Investment Board that produced a science, technology, engineering, and math white paper that focused on STEM diversity in the region. The purpose of the white paper was to pull together data regarding STEM in the region, explore ways to increase the number of students and graduates within STEM pipelines, strategies to recruit STEM talent in the region, and ways to retain STEM talent within the region. We were able to show within the document that there were 783 adult STEM programs and 279 youth STEM programs for a total of 1,062 total STEM programs within Kenosha, Milwaukee, Ozaukee, Racine, Walworth, and Washington counties. These counties make up the M7 region. Milwaukee County had 428 of the 1,062 STEM programs within the M7 region. We had all of this information in a database, but when I left to go to Colgate in 2009, there was no one for me to lead the project to, in other words, to take care of it. I was very disappointed about that. I couldn't find somebody to clone myself. Right now, I'm not sure if anybody in the region has taken the time to reproduce or update the data. This is a golden opportunity for a strong and aggressive business class to take this project over and update the data and use it for our advantage. Knowing what STEM education opportunities are for Black kids and adults and how not to only access them but leverage these programs to create new Black-owned businesses could be game-changing. I'm sure a lot of you in attendance this evening have seen the movie Black Panther. The movie appeared at a moment in Black life when we are searching for and needing Black superheroes and heroines wherever we can find them. These were the sentiments expressed by the National Urban League president Mark Morrell in one of his weekly op-ed pieces in February of 2018. According to Morrell, Black Panther passed 3 important tests. 1, a work of fiction features at least 2 women characters who speak to each other about something other than a man. 2 ethnic minorities talk to each other for more than 5 minutes about something other than race. 3, African Americans and other minorities have fully realized lives rather than serve as scenery in white stories. In Morrell's opinion, Black Panther doesn't just pass these tests, but it shatters the very precepts on which it rests. While I agree with Morrell, he fails to realize and acknowledge and even mention the most important test of all, which is science, technology, engineering, and math gene test. So what am I talking about here? In addition to King T'Challa being portrayed as powerful, intelligent, a remarkable athlete, a master of numerous forms of martial arts, a wealthy and resourceful black hero, he is also a genius in physics and other scientific fields. King T'Challa, the Black Panther, is a STEM role model. For me, the movie is a cinematic protest to the notion that science is only for white men and very smart Asians or folks with a special science gene. The Kingdom of Wakanda portrayed a nation that has an abundance of great science and scientists and engineers. And for those of you who are like me, James Bond fans, until the day you die, Wakanda even has its own version of Q, Shuri, who is the half-sister of King T'Challa. Shuri is a technological wizard, and she affirms the fact that scientific investigation is a career pathway that is open to all black youth. So when you see the movie for the millionth time, be sure to focus on Wakanda being the most technologically advanced nation in the world, and the fact that Wakanda STEM professionals wield the sound-absorbing metal of vibranium, not as a weapon of mass destruction, but as a tool of healing, transportation, and problem solving. The community that approaches the movie with that type of eye will win the STEM race in the future. Now we got to be able to achieve scale. That means grow mentally. Data is the new boo, exporting new business alignments. So running a company, especially a black-owned company, is like doing a stunt on an airplane. It's dangerous and high risk. However, with the right information, meaning data and strategy, our companies can grow. The way you grow, regardless of sector or industry, is that you secure competitive intelligence on markets and competitors, and you get answers to questions that you have across a range of complex business issues. Regardless of race, gender, or ethnicity of your business, there are 5 business issues that prevent small companies from experiencing what I call growth. One is that of core strategy. In other words, your core strategy is your business model, and as well as how you compete on price or innovation. The second thing is that of market dynamics. That means your company, the competition, and the customers. I call that the love triangle. Qualified sales leads, getting the handle to the desired customer DNA. Number 4, innovation, doing things different to achieve a competitive advantage. Answering the question, are you exploiting or are you being exploited? 5, temperament, that means emotional intelligence, your management and leadership style. Meeting these challenges head on will require you to step back from the business to take a look down the field like a punter on a football team. Make no mistake, these are legitimate problems small businesses encounter because they don't have the right information to step around or avoid them. If you truly want to grow and prosper, as well as achieve just-in-time solutions, then you will need to treat data like it's your new boo. The way to secure this data is through a business intelligence process and approach. Through business intelligence, you can secure data that is comparable to the resources customarily only available to large firms. I remember 3 years ago when I took a tour of a Swedish-based company called ABB, which is located off Watertown Plank Road in the interstate. I asked the VP of Food and Beverage for North America if he had a business intelligence unit that was responsible for providing him and other executives with information geared towards increasing the company's revenues. He quickly replied that the unit was just around the corner. Now, how many of us in this room this afternoon can say that we have that type of unit in-house just around the corner or on the next floor of our business? We all should strive to do different things and adopt new ways to experience economic prosperity. Collectively, we should strive to do things faster, smarter, and be more proactive business owners. Basically, what I'm saying is that it's important for you to start working in the business and devote time working on the business. Look for promising international opportunities. Exporting. We have to be in control of our own fate, and we have to explore ways to connect with international opportunities. I know for a fact that black businesses in the state of Wisconsin are not participating on the global business stage, and in particular in Africa. I was in South Africa 3 years ago on a trade mission in which I was accompanied by 6 Wisconsin companies, 3 white-owned firms and 3 black-owned firms. What we discovered during that 14-day visit, which included visiting Johannesburg, Durban, and Richards Bay, which has now been renamed Omalatusi, is almost a lifetime of opportunities for black businesses in Wisconsin. For the sake of time, I will only share about 10 opportunities I discovered. In other words, 10 opportunities that I pulled out of my notes. So 1, strong university partnerships that focus developing joint executive development programs that focus on how to do business in South Africa and the United States. Number 2, Number 2, create the Silicon Valley model along R59 and M1, which is the interstate from Johannesburg and the Northwest Vail Triangle campus. Number 3, joint ventures with U.S. companies to develop stronger business ties between South Africa and Caribbean countries like Jamaica, Trinidad, and Guyana. Number 4, opportunities in East Africa, especially Tanzania and Kenya. Number 5, supply chain opportunities in the development of high-end properties along the coastline near Durban. You're talking about some of the most beautiful beachfront properties I've ever seen in my life. Number 6, development of centers of excellence near Richards Bay, which is actually Omalatusi, that focus synergy projects, technologies that serve rural populations. Number 7, manufacturing and manufacturing skills that can be taken to market. Number 8, technologies that address climate change. 9, sustainable jobs and transportation. Number 10, the Internet of Things, skills development, jobs, learning, and trades. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, please get your passports. 95% of all business opportunities are outside of the United States. I'm not a mathematician, but let me break that down for you further. 95 cents on the dollar is outside where you do business and where you live, work, and play. So, I've said quite a bit. So this is my signature conclusion. Milwaukee leaders must demonstrate what I call the required courage to build the cat. So what I mean by that? Several weeks ago, some rats had a breakfast meeting with all the cheese trimmings. They brought all kinds of rats to the room. As a community of rats, they were all tired of getting eaten up by the cat. This local cat has caused this community of rats great harm. According to various global reports regarding the safety and prosperity of rats around the world, this city of rats were dead last in every category. Sounds a little bit like a city whose name I ain't gonna mention. So they had a meeting. They came in all different kinds of attire, all different kinds of uniforms, and representing the most prominent local rat organizations. Make no mistake, it was a meeting only for the community's highest ranking rats. Nobody else was allowed in the room but these special rats. No press, no foreign dignitaries, nobody but these high-ranking rats. They all introduced themselves, told what kind of rats they were, how long they had been a rat, how they had been functioning as a rat, and why they were upset over the fact that the cat keeps eating them up. It was a hot meeting. They were arguing, and it wasn't fair that every time they looked around, they have another one of their brothers and sisters and cousins and aunts deceased because of this cat was eating the rats. So the chief rat, meaning the rat in charge of the meeting, you know, we got some chiefs in Milwaukee, some chief rats, loudly cried out, "We have just got to do something about it." Unfortunately, they engaged in an unconscious game of paralysis of the analysis, meaning they just kept talking about the cat who was decimating the rat population. Eventually, one sister said, "Well, I make a motion that we tie a bell on the tail of the cat so that wherever this cat goes, you can hear this bell ringing and we can run in the opposite direction." You know, women have wisdom. So the men fell in line and said, "You know, that's great. So they consulted Robert Rules of Order because these rats were sophisticated rats. They established a little planning committee with breakout sessions. The breakout sessions successfully resulted in the development of a major report. Sounds like a lot of reports that float around Milwaukee. After the report was read out loud to all of the rats, they ended up making a motion. Someone said, "I move that we accept Sister Rat's recommendation and put a bell on the tail of the cat so that we can always know his whereabouts." The motion was properly seconded, and lo and behold, it passed unanimously, at which point one of the male rats rose to a point of order. "Point of order," he said. "I would like to just ask a question regarding this unanimous motion. who is going to bail the cat? I think it was a nice suggestion. I think it's logical. I think it makes sense. It titillates me. It excites me. It's beautiful. And it's a wonderful plan. But who is going to put the bail on the cat? And the meeting broke up. And all the rest left the meeting and went on back to their offices, hustling for the same cheese. And definitely trying to stay away from the cat so they wouldn't be his next meal. As with most rats, they were only concerned about getting cheese. The destiny of Milwaukee is in the future, in its future generations, is actually in the hands of the people in this room this evening. The question that I got to ask all of you this afternoon is a simple one. Are you going to cease and desist in the next couple of months, or are you going to come together and strategize on how to bail the cat? Being committed to seeing a community, a region with a treasure trove of successful black businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a matter of accountability and accountable leadership. Thank you so much.